Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Lucas Kwasny on the podcast with us. He's a member of Blackburst Music. It's a production company that he started. He's coming to us all the way from Alberta, Canada, but most importantly, he's our current guest. Lucas, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to get into music? What really motivated you to pursue that?
Well, basically, I kind of got into the electronic music scene when I was still in high school. My sister took me to my first rave, and I just fell in love with it and the culture and like all the people and how inviting they were. And I grew up playing instruments, and my auntie taught me piano, and then it kind of went by the wayside. And yeah, once I got back into the rave scene, it felt like something that I wanted to do. And I kind of started messing around with it when I was working out at a refinery, and ended up hating my job that I did for 3 years, and just decided to follow music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I cannot imagine what a Canadian rave would be like, because I think people are enough polite over here in the States with their raves, but a Canadian rave, that level of politeness and welcoming, just I don't think people here could just fathom. But yeah, I mean, were you always inspired in music even as a kid? Was that something that you always wanted to do, or was it just something that, like you said, when you first went to your rave, you were just like, hey, this is something that I think is really cool?
I think the rave really hit it off for me. Like when I was younger, when I was taking piano lessons and guitar lessons and everything, it felt more like a chore to me. And I think I was just too immature to understand that like I could make a career out of it if I put like all my passion into it. But then when I got back into the scene, it was like, oh, okay, this is like something that I want to do for the rest of my life. And like I want to be able to create and share art. So.
So, like you said, I mean, you were working at a refinery for 3 years. I mean, what was your main motivation then? What really sort of clicked inside you that said, like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I really want to pursue my passion.
It was the people that I worked with. I was really young at the time. When I started, I was 19, I think, and I was there. Like I worked my way up to their crew lead, and they were all like 30 to 40-year-olds, and they didn't like a younger guy being in charge. And I was just getting, for lack of a better term, shit on, and they wouldn't like to listen to me. So it kind of just drove me to the point where I was getting grumpy and coming home grumpy and just like disliking everything that I was doing. And it just like that switch flicked, and it was like, okay, like I quit my job, and then I ended up actually moving to San Francisco to go to school for audio and everything. So
yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. What was the change? I mean, how did you adjust to that weather-wise? I mean, going from Alberta, Canada, to going all the way to San Francisco, was that tough on you?
Oh man, my heart is still in San Francisco. Like, it's minus 30 here right now, and I wish I was in California right now.
Yep. My job, I work at UPS as a supervisor, and I had to. I mean, one of the bad things I should say about being a supervisor at UPS. I mean, they treat us very well. I want to put that out there just in case anyone from UPS is listening. But one of the bad things about being a supervisor is that you have to go out every single night and check all the trucks to make sure that there aren't any loose packages, to make sure every truck showed up. So last week when it was, I mean, you're talking about negative 30 Celsius, which I mean, once you get in the negatives, I think the Celsius and Fahrenheit kind of evens out. That's at least what I've learned. But it was, negative 30 here Fahrenheit, like negative 60 wind chill. I'd go out there. I had 5 layers of upper body stuff on, 5 layers of jackets, 4 layers of pants. I had 3 layers of gloves, 3 layers of socks. I mean, it was 3 layers of face up. I couldn't even breathe, but it was good because when it gets to be that cold, breathing your breath just basically freezes up. So, I'm still at my parents' house until, I move out in a couple of months. So we have a dog, and whenever it went outside a few times last week, I mean, it would bark and its breath would, just clog up, and then it would come in the house whining because its breath, it didn't know why it couldn't bark anymore. But yeah, it was horrible. So yeah, going from that to, I mean, I've had guests on even in the last week from California. I'm just like, you lucky bastards. You don't know.
Oh yeah.
You don't know how good you have it 24/7. But when you were getting started, I mean, first of all, what inspired you to name it Blackburst? Was it just something that that's a thing that popped in your head? Because I get talked about all the time, what inspired DD on the Spot? What inspired Blackburst?
Actually, I was in a video editing course, and just it's an actual kind of coding where it's a blank signal that keeps everything in sync with the time code. And I kind of I found that really cool because I feel like music and art and everything is just like, it's a blank signal. Even though like you're writing music, it's a blank signal to people to take in how they want to take it. So that kind of really resonated with me, and that's kind of what stuck with the name.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for anyone out there, I used to never tell the story, but DD on the Spot for me is because I was a pretty hard partier in college. So then when I've sobered up a little bit, I mean, I still drink, a decent amount, but not as much as I used to. So I am the group's designated driver most of the time. So the DD on the spot comes for the designated driver on the spot. That's what my friends used to call me. So finally, it's out there. I waited for this podcast to release it. It's going to be close to like our 200th podcast. So yeah, you guys are finally, I can stop getting asked all the time, what does the DD on the spot stand for? It is now out there in the ether. But when you were getting started, I mean, taking that video production course, has that really helped you apply to your profession? Because I know so many people on here that, like go to college. One of the biggest complaints is, I didn't really learn anything that really applies to my everyday life. But when you're doing a specific, class like that for a specific job, does that class actually help you out when you're going on to your career?
It did actually, because like I did the full it was called the complete producer program, so it covered everything from music theory to video editing. So when I was taking that video editing course, a lot of it tied in with film scoring and like writing music to film, and like I use a lot of those techniques in my own production, like my own songs every time that I write. So it was very helpful.
So did you already have like a base of people that knew that you wanted to do this, or was it something where you basically just had to start out from ground zero and just say, like, hey, I'm out here, come and find me if you want to get, some help with your videos or help with your production? Or did you already have that base that people always say is very crucial to have when starting out?
I did it by the seat of my pants. Like I just started. So it's still tough. I mean, to this day, it's still a grind every day. Like you're putting in a ridiculous amount of hours, and it's a lot of work. But yeah, I started from scratch. So
I struggled that same way too, because I was an idiot, because I learned ahead of time that, even my friends were like, yeah, you could have had me on as some of your first guests, because like I've had friends that, are doing a little bit of music, or, they're even like, being like engineers, whatever, have them come on. I was like, yeah, that would have been a lot easier, because, it's always hard to find that first guest. But once you have, your first handful, or even with you too, once you have your first handful of customers, then you can start to slowly expand. But yeah, those first couple of months, yeah, those are rough, really, really rough. So it's, it's all about perseverance. But I mean, also working on a job that's so tough as working in a refinery up in Alberta, do you think that kind of prepared you for the rejection that you're going to get, and the fact that, I mean, you had people below you that were older than you that really didn't respect you as much? Do you think that attitude that they gave you kind of prepared you for the fact that you are going to get a lot of rejection? It is going to be a lot of struggle when you're starting out on your own.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that plays a big part in it. And also, like on the first day of orientation when I went to school, they said in this industry, get used to hearing no. And like sending songs to labels to get them signed to like music labels, you still hear no a lot. And like my production is at the point where it shouldn't be, like I shouldn't hear no, but it's just not a right fit for the label. And you still get like that kind of stab to the gut when you get the reply. It's like, no, we're not feeling this song. It's like, oh, okay, like what do I need to change? But
when you were getting started, was there a certain type of music that you wanted to get into and work with, or were you just open to all genres?
When I first started out, I was into the big room house fad, because that was like just huge back in the day, Dioro and all them, and it kind of transferred over to like heavier dubstep and stuff, because I grew up listening to Slipknot and Avenged Sevenfold, like I was a metalhead, so I really found my roots in dubstep and like mid tempo and bass music, and so.
Yeah, those are definitely, I mean, I'm a little bit younger, but I still remember being young when that, when that genre was really popular and when those bands were, at their peak. Yeah, so that's definitely, I hear those band names and it brings back, a little bit of memories for me. But when you were getting started, how did you really like to promote yourself? I mean, because I love to say this, every guest that starts their own business. I mean, for the business that you're in, I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of other people, probably just in Canada alone, that are doing it. How did you try to find ways to differentiate yourself from other producers and other people that were producing?
It's a lot in the sound design, like in actual like in the music, and it's just trying to be unique in how you, like especially in bass music, how you're designing those basses and trying to find like that sound that stands out to people, be like, oh hey, that's Blackbird's song, like it sounds sweet. And then like other than that, a lot of it is social media presence, and I'm so bad for it. Like I'm terrible for it. Which is like I've signed a lot of stuff to Otodeo Records, and they have been absolutely amazing. They push my songs, they do all the marketing for me, and it takes a lot of stress out of that other 80% of the industry that you have to worry about. But yeah.
What is that place that you just said? I'll give them a plug right now.
Otodeo Records.
Otodeo Records. Okay, I'll leave a link to all their stuff down below for anyone out there who's thinking about that, because apparently, I mean, so what do they do for you then? So you just basically send them your finished songs, and then they do all the marketing for it, and then they release it, and they do everything else?
Yep, pretty much. If they're feeling the song, and they'll sign it to the label, and depending on what kind of contract you get, it's typically a 50-50 split
Mhm.
between the producer and the label. And then, yeah, they do pretty much everything. They push it out to iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, everything like that. And then, yeah, they push it on like all major platforms. So,
I gotta get into that because honestly, I'm only doing this for YouTube because I had a friend who's I've been doing this for 7 months and he's been in Europe and he's coming back in 2 months because he left literally like 2 days before I started this and he's gonna put it on iTunes. But I said, yeah, I might check that out then and see if hey, if they'll do podcasts as well, help promote them and put them on iTunes because yeah, that would be great. So everyone go and check those guys out. I'll leave a link down below. But what was your first guest and how did you get them? Was it just a word of mouth?
yeah, pretty much actually. One of the artists that I worked with, I met down in San Francisco, and he was a friend of a mutual friend of mine,
Yeah.
and we ended up. I actually just wrote a song with him a couple months ago, and it took a year for us to write this song, and it was just yeah, luck of the draw. Like we introduced each other, and then we started talking, and we were bouncing track ideas back and forth, and I sent him one day, and he was just like, "Yo, dude, this is fucking awesome!
Yeah.
Like we need to write this together," and yeah, that's basically how we came to collab.
It's just so funny, how that stuff how that stuff just comes to be because everyone just has their own unique story when it comes to that. But when you're producing a music and when you're making songs, I mean, I always love to ask people that, write the songs when I have the bands on. What is your main inspiration when it comes to what the song is going to entail? I mean, lyrically wise, do you ever try to interpret random acts that you see in daily life or, just things that you might be hearing into your lyrics? Or is it something where you just put your hand on a pen and put it on a piece of paper and just say, hey, this is what we're going to write down?
Well, typically, I don't mess with vocals too much because I'm
Oh, okay.
not that creative.
Yeah.
But um, like for inspiration for my tracks, I pull a lot from a lot of my favorite artists. It's just the way they do things and how they're creating music,
Mhm.
and honestly, a lot of old school hip hop.
Yeah.
Like you get really crazy kick patterns and like a lot of vibes from old school hip hop.
Well, who would you say out of the old school hip hop is your favorite artist?
Oh, Nas, hands
Nas.
down,
Yeah.
Nas.
Yep. Yep. They definitely have some great stuff. But I mean, Blackburst, it's just such an awesome name, and I gotta say, everyone, as always, go and give that a follow down below. But moving on the podcast, so I mean, when you are signing these people or when you're helping them do their stuff, how much do you play into the songwriter or the creative process? Because like you said, I mean, you don't mess with the lyrics as much, but how much more do you sort of mess with the rest of the song, or is it just they just send you the stuff and then you say like I'm gonna make it sound as good as you want it to sound?
Yeah, and typically in mixing and mastering, they'll just send me like a project that they want
Mhm.
mixed down and then mastered and to be ready to send to like get sent to labels. But I know I've written a bunch of stuff or helped write a bunch of stuff for my friend in San Francisco, and I tend to go into the creative process more when I know the person,
Mhm.
just because
Yeah.
I can back it up and be like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I changed a few things, and this is why."
Mhm.
And usually everybody's like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome," and then we can kind of feed off that and make that project even better.
Mhm. Oh, no, yeah. I completely agree. Working with people that you're more familiar with, I mean, that adds so much more and just having that camaraderie where that like if you make some changes, they're not gonna just like freak out and be like, yeah, what the hell? I'm not, yeah, this is yeah, so yeah, I get that entirely. But now I gotta ask you one of the important questions. Why the hell did you move back from to Canada from San Francisco?
My visa ran up.
Oh.
Straight up, my visa ran up. That's the only reason, and it's hella expensive down there.
Yeah, that too. My brother, he used to live in LA for a year because he has a friend that he was a producer for some like Hallmark TV show or something like that. But he lived with them for a year and then he's like, yeah, he had to move back because he's like, yeah, it's way too damn expensive. But I told you when we were doing this before we record that I would tell you my Canada adventure story. So I'll tell it. I figured this would be the appropriate time now. I have friends that go to college up in Duluth, and Duluth is about an hour and a half away from the Canadian border. So one day they were in class, and I had nothing to do because I went up on a Thursday, and they had class that Friday before we went out and partied. So I had about like 5 hours to myself because they were in class. So then he said, hey, I thought it'd be fun, if I went up to the Canadian border or whatever. So I drove all the way up there, went up to the person standing at the border patrol door, and I said, hey, I don't want to like stay or anything like that, but could you just let me take a step over the border so that I can technically say that I've been to a different country? And then they're like, oh yeah, we get people to do that all the time. They're like, oh, no worries. So I just parked my car on the U.S. side. I took 2 steps over on the Canadian border, took a photo for proof, and then I just said, hey, been to another
I've been to
country.
Canada.
Got back in my car and drove off. So I have been an international traveler. I mean, I haven't, been through there, but I had a brother that played, baseball in Kelowna for a summer, and he really enjoyed that. But yeah, that's one place I've always wanted to go. I've always wanted to go to. I mean, I don't speak a lick of French, but Quebec City always looks nice, so I've always wanted to go there, or Ottawa, or someplace like that. But yeah, I definitely in the future, I definitely want to go there. But like I always tell, even with the health and fitness guests that I have on, I mean, with this weather, it can be very, very depressing. Like, I mean, it's like when it's -30, you don't want to go outside. What are some ways that you use to still stay motivated to get your work done when basically your body's just telling you, hey, let's just chill out and just relax and get some sleep?
Red Bull,
Red Bull.
100% Red Bull. Yeah, Red Bull
Hmm.
and coffee. But no, it is super tough to stay motivated, especially like you said when it's -30 and it's been snowing and you kind of just want to like curl up in bed. But I mean, the reward of getting a song signed and having 300,000 streams on a song, or people
Wow.
messaging you, or just saying like, "Hey, you're killing it right now," or they're reaching out like, "Hey, this song meant a lot to
Mhm,
me." It's really inspiring, and it it drives you to
mhm.
keep going.
What was the name of the first song that you produced?
Classics.
Classics.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll definitely give that a listen to. But like you said, your labels have to have their own sort of defining sound when it comes to their music, so that people can say, "Oh, that's a Blackbird sound," or "That's a so and so sound." What would you say makes yours different than all the other sounds?
I think I I I I pull a lot from the heavy metal. Like a lot
Hmm.
of the basses that I designed, they sound more guitarish than electronic music.
Hmm.
So you kind of get like that headbanging, like heavy metal feel to it. So
Hmm.
that's a big thing for me. Like trying to be unique in
Hmm.
some kind of different way than everybody else.
And I always like to get this opinion because I mean, everyone has their own opinion on what makes a song great. But in your opinion, when looking at a song and when judging a song based from when you first got it to when you release it, what in your opinion differentiates, a song from being a good song to a song being a great song?
It's all about the writing and the vibe of the track, because you can piece together a bunch of different sounds that you designed and like try and make them flow. But if like the vibe's not there and you're not putting like your heart or your passion into the song, you can tell.
Mhm.
And that's yeah, that's a really big thing.
I agree with that partially, but I do have to say some of these songs that are like a #1 hit single, and you can tell that like these artists put no work into it at all, and then they're just like, yeah, let's just put some random words in there. Like, I mean, I'm a huge Nirvana guy, but I mean, even Kurt Cobain admitted some of those lyrics that he had were just he just made up at the last second, and he's just like, oh,
Oh,
okay, yeah, it's all about the music.
100%.
But yeah, so I agree with you on that. Like only when it comes to like the songs that are super popular, but I always say like the pop music these days is ridiculous, which kind of leads me into a question that I love to ask people that, like you said, are in the heavy metal, they're in the rock. I always love to ask, in your opinion, because there isn't a huge, mainstream rock audience now. I mean, there are for the old school songs, or they are for, like the 80s and 90s or 70s rock music. But what, in your opinion, caused rock to go from being, like the defining music genre that everyone listened to and was the most popular, to now being just a second-rate genre where, I mean, you have a new song that's popular. You probably have like one or two songs that make it to the mainstream that are really, really hit every year now. What do you think really caused that decline?
Well, I think metal was just a big fuck you to music, to
Hmm.
the whole industry, and there was a lot of people riding that wave, and like even Metallica, like they rode that wave right to the top, and then after that, I think people kind of dispersed and started going into these like lo-fi genres and expanding and going and trying to search to find that new big thing, which I know it kind of sucks for metal because it did fall off, but it opened up all these different avenues for so many more people to create art. So I don't like you said, it has fallen off, but I think the fall off has opened a lot more
Mhm.
doors.
Yeah, well, and then we also hear too a lot, just like hip hop too, sort of came over and took off that. But yeah, I mean, I wish that it makes a comeback, and I hope it does. And I know that there are a lot of people like you and a lot of other people trying to make rock and heavy metal in general come back because let's face it, Metallica is still always going to be on my workout playlist. I mean, I have
Yep.
I got my workout in right before I talked to you, and for whom the bell tolls. I mean, that's my go to. Just hear that all the time. So yeah, I mean that music. I mean, really should be around more because it really just that's more emotional than 90% of these songs that they play on the radio now, where it's just the punky cheesy. I don't even want to talk about that much because that really just makes me depressed, where I'm like, okay, this is what's playing on the radio. So yeah, I mean, even driving to work after I'm done recording this, I'm gonna probably listen to some crap like that on the radio, and I'm just gonna turn it and just be like, yeah, I give up on this generation. But when a lot of people think of producers, they have different ideas as to what exactly a producer does for music. I mean, sometimes like there's always that trope in those movies where the producer is kind of like that seedy guy who, tries to take the band for all their money, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you." Is it hard for you to sort of be able to convince people that it's not like it might be what they see, like when it comes to producing, like especially bands that are starting out who might not have that much contact with producers? Has that been a difficulty for you, sort of convincing them that it's not like it's portrayed a lot?
I think I think yes and no. There a lot of the people like in our generation are starting to understand that it's not like it was, and like producers aren't there just to take you for half of your money and
Yep.
not going to put the effort in. And a lot of because it's a lot of my age people that are coming into those spots now, and they're more focused on the art and like spreading it and being able to create. So it, I think it's getting better for sure.
Oh, I completely agree because we hear, all these lawsuits that happen with these big stars when they go to their label. Like I think Kesha was with her label, and just, all these stars that then end up suing their labels because they screw them over. And then that gives producers a bad image because then people are like, oh, is that what all producers like? But no, it's not. I mean, that's like the 1%ers, just like I say, to a lot of other things. So yeah, when people think of producers, I mean, a lot of the times it is good, but unfortunately they sometimes do have that negative stereotype to it that I really think needs to be changed. But bass music, is that something that you also came up with yourself?
No, actually, it was just like a play on words for bass music.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, do you mainly work with bass then? Is that your kind of go-to when you're working on a song? Is that your favorite thing to work on?
Yeah. Typically, I'm a really big sound design nerd.
Mhm.
So like when I'm designing like basses in Serum, that's where I'm happiest.
Mhm.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I always like to say, whenever I have bands on, I always ask the bass player because I say, like you're always going to be known as the redheaded stepchild, basically in the band. But it's one of the most important positions, if not. I mean, I always say, drummers are always the unsung heroes of bands, which let's face it, they are. I mean, they provide the backbone of the band. I mean, drummers screw up. Everything else goes to shit. But bass, I mean, you're backing up the guitar player, and the guitar player, I mean, if the bass isn't on point, the guitar player gets screwed up. So it's definitely one of the most important positions. But what to you makes a defining bass sound? What to you really, when you're listening to two different bass sounds, what would make you say, "Oh, that bass is better than that bass"?
Um, it really depends. Like, especially, it's so much different from like like an actual bass guitar, but
Mhm.
in electronic music where you can have so many different harmonics or use different filters, it's the timbre of the sound that really resonates with me.
Mhm. Yeah. So, have you ever had difficulty with any of these artists that you've been working with where they know that, I mean, they might like the product that they send you without having it be edited? They might say, you know what, this song is perfect, just patch it up a little bit. Have you found it hard sometimes to make changes to the song knowing that the artist is so kind of intangible with that? Because I always tell the artists that I have on, I mean, when you write a song, especially the writer of it, that's kind of like your baby where, I mean, you've produced it. I mean, that's yours, or not produced it, but you've came up with it. You've practiced it millions upon millions of times. It's your life that you're basically sending into the world. Kind of, it's your imagination. Have you found that difficult then sometimes to say to people like, oh, I really want to change this, knowing that they're so close to their music?
No, because I think being an artist, everybody's really open
Hmm.
about talking and discussing and changing things. Just because, again, we are so creative and we like to try new things. But there are times where people are like, "No, this is how I want it. This is how it's staying." And I'll just say to them, like, I'll recommend, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it'll be better this way,
Yeah.
or it might be better." And if you don't want to change it, then
Yeah.
that's fine.
Well, you do it in
But
the polite Canadian way. I mean, if you were in the States here, it might go a little bit differently. But because I mean, I've watched these documentaries, about like Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys and just how crazy he was in the studio with everything had to be perfect. And if you didn't like my vision, get out of there. So yeah, I always like I said, the movies, and we're breaking that stereotype left and right. The movies always do have that weird image when it comes to producing music and what that entails. But also, I mean, working with these people, you have to deal with a vast variety of personalities, a vast variety of egos, like I do with this podcast. When you're meeting people and you're realizing that, do you find that it can be difficult at times to sort of read people and read what they're going to be like when you're polishing up their music? Because if you have someone that's a lot more willing to work with you, that's going to be a better experience. But if you have someone who's a lot more staunch and a lot more headstrong, that could make a lot of clashing.
yeah, no, 100%. And that's the beauty about being more so remote,
Hmm.
because then like I don't really have to deal a lot with face to face,
Yep.
and everything's through email, and like it's all so much easier
Oh,
on
that
me.
that sounds so much better.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it is always nice getting into a studio and working with people, and the people that I have worked with, they've always been amazing. So
Do you feel any added pressure when you get into a studio? Because there's always, with all the bands that I've talked to, you pay for a certain amount of time, and that's the amount of time that you get. I mean, if you don't get your music done, tough shit. Like you're done. You paid for your time. Do you ever feel that extra added pressure knowing that like I have to get this stuff done when I'm in this studio?
oh yeah, absolutely. And I think going to school, we were able to record a lot of live bands, and
Mhm.
that kind of prepped me for it,
Yeah.
and just my efficiency and my workflow and everything. So without having that, I don't know where I would be.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine, what that pressure can be like because I mean, let's face it, a band member could get sick, or I mean, the guitar might not be working that day, the drums might not be working that day. I mean, there's so many intangibles that could be happening that it really does put on a lot of pressure with everyone. But what is that feeling like for you when you finished a song and you know that you've done your best job and that you give it to the band and they really like it? Does that make everything worthwhile? Does that make, all of the hard work and suffering that you've done hours upon hours for? Does that make it all worthwhile to you?
Oh, 100%. There's no better feeling in the world. It's like you said, it's taking somebody's baby and then making it better and giving it back to them, and then it's your baby and their baby too. So it's just kind of, yeah, it's an amazing feeling.
So these people that you send the music to, those auto, people who, do all the promotion for you, do all the production, all that type of stuff, the messaging. Do you ever hear your songs on the radio? Then do they ever put them on the radio stations, or is it just, on iTunes and other platforms?
I haven't been lucky enough to release anything that's made it to radio
Yeah.
yet, but my genre is pretty niche and it's
Yeah.
more in the EDM scene. So
Yeah. So have you thought about trying to expand? Because if your genre is so, just stuck to one like EDM, have you ever thought about doing other types of music?
I have, but I think later on down the road, like
Yeah.
I really wanted to focus on like my own music now
Yeah.
and kind of get that going, and then so be it if it comes
Yeah.
to writing pop music when I'm 40.
Yeah, don't sell out yet. I mean, you got a few. Same with me too. I'm like, I'm not gonna start having, like these like any like famous celebrities on this podcast until I'm finally just like, okay, I give up. I need people. I need celebrities on. But yeah,
Yeah.
so 100%. I mean, yeah, and that's what's great about starting your own company is that you don't really have to deal with that. But one of the things that I love to talk about with people who start their own companies, because starting this own podcast, it's similar to that, but not 100% similar. But you are constantly working. I mean, one of the things, I took a business class in college, and the biggest thing that the professor told us, he said, is that the biggest difference between working a 9 to 5 job as just an employee and owning your own company is that you never stop working. Because when you're not even working, when you're owning the place, you're constantly thinking about it, thinking about ways to improve it. What are some ways and techniques that you try to do to help separate that work-life balance so that you can still, enjoy other things in life and not just go insane constantly thinking about, how can I make this better? How can I do this?
Well, I'm gonna shout out to my sister right now because she's really big into the gym, and that's where I go to clear my head. I go to the gym for 2 hours a night, and that's my sane place.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I cannot tell you how many times those weights have taken a beating from me, and they they're still back the next day. So yeah, the weights, that is definitely a huge thing, that just clears the mind and makes everything better. So again, everyone, I know it's a music podcast, but I'm making a health and fitness plug out there. Get in shape, go to the gym, blah blah blah, all that crap that you'll hear me on a regular health and fitness podcast. But the same message that I always like to promote on that. But now going back to just starting out and getting that music, how did you get through those days and those times when it was really rough starting out? Because I always like to ask, even with the people that go to the gym or with anyone else that I have on, when you do get started, it is really, really rough. How did you self-motivate and say, like, this is a purpose, this is something that's going to happen? Because I've had days in and of myself where, I'm just thinking to myself, is like, what am I doing? Like this, when is this going to, like come to fruition? How did you deal with those times and say, because I can guarantee you probably had those times where you're like, I might as well just go back to work for the refinery because I know I hated it, but it was a steady paycheck. How did you motivate yourself to get through those times?
Honestly, it was I'd spend a lot of time talking on the phone with my mom because I am a mama's boy through and through. And then even when times got really tough, when I was in San Francisco, I actually ended up going to a therapist, and he helped me through a lot of shit, and just with different exercises about how to calm the mind and just kind of recenter yourself and get back to being productive. And it was just it's a really 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 tough industry to be in, and there's mental health is like a huge thing.
And people wonder why all these artists, they hear these things about, like going to rehab or doing all that type of, I mean, it is very stressful. And just like with acting in general, all those types of industries, because you're going to get said no a lot to, and you're never going to have a steady paycheck, or unless you land something really big where you're going to have a steady paycheck for, let's say, maybe a year or a couple years at most. And then, it's back to, finding work. So it's really, really hard. But also one of the things that I think is beneficial about that lifestyle is that you could have a really, really down day. And next thing you know, you get a call and someone says like, hey, I really want to work with you. I really want to do that. How do you deal with that, knowing that you are going to have a lot of bipolar days where you're going to be really down in the dumps and then you're going to be really happy, or you're going to have days where you're going to be really happy and then someone might cancel on you and then you get really down? Is that just a struggle for you to sort of prepare for times like that?
I think so, yeah. But again, like I'm happiest when I'm writing music.
Yep.
So if I'm not having a client, then I kind of just revert back and focus on my own stuff. And even when, say, I'm really pissed off that day, like I'll write something that's really heavy, and then I can express myself through that and kind of feel what I need to feel, get it out, put it into music, and move on.
Yeah. No, and it's that's a great stress reliever. But like you were saying a couple times, you've started your own music. What inspired you to get into that yourself? Was it something that you always wanted to do, and then you just said, when I have the right amount of time, I'll start working on music for myself?
Kind of. Again, like I'm gonna go back to like the rave, and I just saw like how many people were so happy just to be there listening to music and enjoying it with their friends and everything, and it kind of just clicked in me that like, hey, like I'm talented enough to do this. I can write music, and I can have people feeling good about what I write, and it help them in some way. So that's a really big motivator for me.
Are you working on anything? Have you released any songs? Are you working on an album, or is anything in process right now?
Yeah, I think I have 6 or 7 that are already released. And yeah, again, they're on Spotify and iTunes and Apple Music. And then, oh God, I think I have like 13 projects on the go right now.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I wrapped up a song last night, and then I wrapped one up right before this interview. So I've been going steady.
That's amazing. And again, I'll leave the link to your Spotify down below so everyone can go and check out your music. But one of the things that I struggle with, and I think would also be struggling with the music producers, when I'm editing these podcasts, sometimes I think I'm fully done. Like I've edited everything, it's as perfect as it can be. But then, late at night, let's say like at 2:30 in the morning or 3 in the morning, you're like, that one thing, maybe I could make that one thing just a little bit better. That one thing that I could really change. Is that been a struggle for you, even when you've already maybe even released a song where you're just like, oh my God, if I could go back and just change that one thing or do that? How do you deal with that? Because I have some nights too where I feel like going crazy, where I'm just like, oh my God, I can't I can't do this right now. Has that been a struggle with you too, just always wanting to make a perfect song and trying to make a song better than it already is?
Yeah, literally every song that I write. And one of my favorite profs from Pure Mind, he told us that a song will be done, but it'll never be finished. So and like you said, I listen to some of the songs that I've released today, and it's like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
Like it can be so much better. And you kind of just have to accept the fact that it's done, but it'll never be finished.
Oh yeah, like and you got the good thing where you got to go to school for this. Like I didn't go to school for podcasts, so I look at some of those early podcasts when I didn't know how to edit, I didn't know how to do that, and I was like, you can hear some background noise in some of them where I'm just like, oh my God, I just wish I could go back and re-release them and do everything. But yeah, so yeah, I totally understand that, and it's just the creative process where you just have to accept things. And how has that acceptance and knowing that not everything is going to be perfect, how has that applied to other areas in your life? Because it is one of those intangible things, just the acceptance that not everything's going to be perfect, not everything's going to go your way. Has that really helped you in other aspects of life other than your producing?
Oh, 100%. And I'm kind of like a big thing of I don't believe that things happen for a reason. I believe that things happen and we adapt. And I think that's come from music and then the last couple of years. And yeah, whether it be a relationship and just that's something that's not making sense or anything, you kind of just have to accept it and move on. There's no sense dwelling on the past and packing up baggage, and it's not worth it. We're not around for that long. Might as well make the best like the time we're here for.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And I love to ask, for song titles, for the bands I have on and for you as well, because you're coming up with your own music. What inspires the song title? Because I say it's half and half for the bands that I have on it. Half the time it's, from the lyrics, you choose a good lyric and then you say, oh yeah, that's going to be the song title. But for other people, I mean, they have the song title already written in mind before they write the lyrics, and then they just base the lyrics kind of off of that. What is your process like when it comes to naming your songs?
It depends. Like if I find a really cool vocal sample that I use like for the pre-drop or whatever, and I really like what it says, I'll base it off that. Or there's actually a song that's coming out in March that's called "Get Fucked," and
wonder where that one came from.
Yeah, I wrote it right after I broke up or stopped seeing a girl, and I was just angry, and you can hear it through the whole song. It's just a very aggressive song, and yeah, that's where that one came from.
I mean, I'm a huge Trailer Park Boys fan, so whenever I hear someone say "get fucked," I always think about that and like Bubbles saying that or someone like that.
Fuck you, dude.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So they recorded one of their specials, in St. Paul, and I didn't get to go to it because I didn't even know that they were there, but they released it. And then one time there, so I live in Bloomington where the Mall of America is, and they came to visit it one time. But part of the sketch was, I mean, Randy didn't have his shirt on, so they got kicked out because you can't wear, can't be shirtless at the Mall of America. But yeah, I mean, I love that. And Letterkenny too is probably two of my favorite Canadian shows. I mean, they got some really funny stuff up in Canada, so everyone, I highly recommend that you go and check that out. But now we go to our audience favorite, my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire. We're gonna ask Lucas here a couple of music related questions and see how his answers stack up to all the other music guests that we've had on our show. So for our first question, out of all the songs that have ever been written in the history of music, what is one song that you personally wish that you would come up with yourself?
Oh, I'm gonna say Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's definitely up there, and I mean, I cannot blame it. Have you seen the movie?
No, not yet. I'm waiting. I want to watch it when I have time to enjoy it.
Well, and I'm one of those cheapskates too, where it's like once it comes out on like Netflix or anything like that, then I'll just watch it for free. Where I mean, but my little brother's obsessed. He's seen it like 7 times in theaters, and I don't know why. I mean, he's in college, but he comes home, every other weekend to work. But the times he's not working, he just gets really bored because none of his friends are home. So he's like, "Oh, I'll go see Bohemian Rhapsody again," and I'm just like, why? But I mean,
Why?
I was like, he's like wasted like $70 on like 7 times he's seen it in the movies. And I was like, why are you doing? But yeah, I mean, he absolutely loves it. But yeah, I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody is one of those songs where I think, honestly, if that got released, I would say that song's perfect and that I would never think about editing one bit of it. I mean, there are those songs when you just hear them when you're just like, wow, that is just a perfect song, and they're very, very rare. And how they got that song released back then, an 8-minute song or however long it is, back when you still had like the shades of those Beatles songs that were like 2.5 minutes long, where just like make as many songs as possible, make them as quick as possible so we can market them. But yeah, just that is inspired for me personally. It would be the Happy Birthday song, and I would copyright it. Think about all the royalties that you would make if you copyrighted the Happy Birthday song. Every day you'd make tens of thousands of dollars on royalties alone. More than that, but I'm just making a soft estimate. But yeah, because I had a guest on that was also a waitress too, and she said that you can't even sing the Happy Birthday song anymore in the big chains of restaurants because they're afraid that they're going to get sued or whatever. Because I think it's not in public domain anymore. I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up and make sure, and I'll leave something down below if I find out if it's not public domain or not. But yeah, that's the Happy Birthday song. But now, out of all the venues on the planet, if you could perform at any venue, where would it be?
Red Rocks Amphitheater.
Again, that is okay. So I haven't done a music podcast in probably about a month, so I totally forgot. But yeah, that is our most popular answer. Because another answer that's like the health and fitness, where I say like out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be? The Rock is our answer for that. 90% of the time. Red Rocks is our most popular answer. I'd say about 60% of our answers are that, and then Madison Square Garden is in close second, and then everywhere else is there. But yeah, Red Rocks. I mean, I've seen photos of it. Yeah, that would be insane. But for me, I gotta go Slane Castle in Ireland. If you know what that is,
I don't. I'll have to check it
So
out.
definitely check it out, because it's a castle in Ireland. It's like on a hill, and they play music in front of the castle, and it's the most scenic scene ever. And I mean, it's just on a hillside. Yeah, you definitely gotta check it out. And I mean, you're Canadian, so you're a fan of him. But Bryan Adams is probably one of my favorite artists of all. I mean, I've seen him in concert twice, and he had a huge concert there. That's what really got me into Slane Castle, because I mean, it is just an amazing venue. So I highly recommend checking that out. But now, out of all the artists that have ever lived, dead or alive, doesn't matter. You can pick either one. If you could perform live with any artist, who would it be?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to say Zomboy.
Zomboy.
He's a dubstep producer, and that's one of the reasons why I started writing heavy music.
Oh, yeah, and that's the first Zomboy that we've had on here, and I am still waiting patiently for someone to just be like, you know what, Mozart or Beethoven. Now that would be an answer where I would be like, okay, that's not the type of music. But yeah, Zomboy for sure. We have Zomboy on the table now, so he is on the list. But now, out of all the albums that have ever been produced, what is one album that you wish you had a creative output in?
Oh God, I honestly don't think I can answer that. I honestly don't. Man, yeah, I'm gonna have to take a hard pass, because if I say the wrong one, it's on video forever.
That's true. That's true. So for me, I mean, I have two. I mean, I'm gonna break the rules. So I'm gonna have two. It would probably be Nirvana's Nevermind, and then Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. Just because, I mean, how they came up with that Dark Side of the Moon, that is an album that you could release today and it still sounds absolutely it still sounds futuristic. Like how they were able to get those sounds and to get that. I mean, Pink Floyd. People
Unreal.
I mean, I think they are one of the most underrated bands, because I know that they're in the top echelon of bands that people talk about, but when it comes to being recognized, not too many people know about Pink Floyd as they do, like Led Zeppelin. Now, I'm not going to say a bad word about Led Zeppelin any day in my life, because, it's Led Zeppelin, but I mean, just Pink Floyd deserves a little bit more recognition just for the changes that they helped introduce to music. So yeah, I mean 100%. But now moving on, if there was ever a person in the music industry that you could work with other than a band, if there was is there a producer that you really looked up to that if you had the opportunity to work with, who'd it be?
I'm gonna say Skrillex because
Yep.
he has done so much for this electronic music scene, and he's just so talented. It's unbelievable, and I think he just holds a lot of knowledge,
Mhm.
and knowledge is power. So, and I think just like being able to see his creative process and kind of dive into his mind would be really cool.
Mhm. No, yeah, I couldn't agree more. But now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give him?
Go to school for music
Yep.
earlier.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I could see that one coming. I mean, and always, I was a people pleaser back then. If I could realize, you don't always have to be a huge people pleaser, I would definitely make that change. 3 questions that I have in the questionnaire that are fun questions to ask. So for our first one, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Uh, The Punisher, the new series of The Punisher.
I've heard so many good things about it, but I haven't gotten into it yet, so I definitely need to get my hands on that. I binge watched You as a show that, I mean, I had so many guests come on and talk about it that I finally said, you know what, I caved and I watched it. It was really good. I recommend that as well. But now, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Ooh, I'd have to say Archer, the
Archer.
cartoon.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a very underrated show, but yeah, Archer, everyone go out and check that out. But for me, I mean, my three, again, I'm breaking my own rules, but The Office, Friends, and South Park are basically, tied for me. I don't know how much you like South Park because it always portrays the way it portrays Canadians. I always find is super super hilarious. But
I'm
yeah,
not your buddy,
yeah,
pal.
oh yeah. That's that is that. I mean, anytime South Park comes on, that's one of those that I definitely have to stop and watch. But now everyone has one. What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
The Notebook. Oh boy.
What? Oh my god. I can't believe you admitted that to be on video forever. Okay, everyone, we
Well,
have a Notebook lover. But yeah,
I'm a hopeless romantic, so
okay, so my movie is not as girly as that, but is very similar. And all of my guy friends, close your ears. You've never heard this from me. I'll never admit it in person, but Princess Bride is my guilty pleasure movie. Where that movie comes on, I mean, I'll pause whatever I'm doing and I'll watch it. I was writing my thesis paper in college when that came on. I stopped what I was doing, and if that isn't dedication, I don't know what is. But we got the Notebook on here. I mean, that's only been answered like twice, so I mean, it's definitely getting up there. So we're done with the questionnaire, and now I like to ask these last few questions before we wrap things up. So if we were to talk to you a year from now, what would be your main goal when it came to your production company, when it came to just your career? Where would you like to be at a year from today?
hopefully I'd be touring already.
Yep.
That's kind of like the main goal, and to be a touring artist
Yeah.
and just be able to share my art
Yeah.
worldwide.
Absolutely. And is there any locations in specific that you would love to start out with? Are you just going to do basically an Alberta, Canada tour? Or would you like to go into the States at first? Or do you have like a planned route already of where you would like to go?
I think I would like to start in Canada just because it is home,
Yeah.
and then branch out down into LA because the scene's just so big down there, and
Mhm.
then of course go to San Francisco because I got the opportunity to play Ruby Sky before it closed down and got renovated,
Yeah.
and it'd be awesome to go back there and play.
That's unbelievable. And again, we wish you nothing but the best of luck when it comes to that. I mean, I'll leave a link to all of your stuff down below. But now, do you have anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Uh, yeah, definitely my parents,
Mhm.
just because they've had to support me and
Yeah.
deal with my anger and everything, and
Oh, believe me, yeah, well, yeah, I know,
yeah,
yeah.
and my sister because she's always there for me,
Mhm.
and then just everybody that I got to work with through school. Shout out to Pyramind, everybody there, all the amazing artists that I've been able to work with over this last year, and Otodeo Records for giving my music a home, and yeah, just all
Yeah.
my fans and family
Yeah.
and everybody that supports me.
That's unbelievable. So I do got to ask though too, out of that school that you went to in San Francisco, what made you choose that school out of all the other schools? Was it just something that you really just looked at that and said, like I feel like I'd really fit in there?
Yeah, and actually, a friend of mine who did the same thing is doing the same thing, producing now. Is they go under Blue Jay.
Mhm.
He went to the same school I did, and he recommended it, and he said it's just a family environment. And I ended up going down and uh, did like an intake interview, and it was the most welcoming place that I've been to. So it was an easy choice to make.
Yeah. So again, everyone, if you want to go to a music school or you want to go and learn about video production, definitely go there. I mean, we got it from a guy who's definitely used it to his advantage. So everyone go and give that a check out. But now, lastly, the last question I love to ask all of my guests. So if someone were to walk up to you and say, like, hey, I really want to get into music, I really want to start, or do what you're doing, I really just want to, get into the scene. What is the best piece of advice that you would give them just so that they're able to start out and just so that they have fun doing it as well?
Uh, just make sure that you love it,
Mhm.
and because that's what it comes down to. There's going to be a lot of days where you're going to be working on a 5-second piece of a song for 4 hours, and you're going to think, "What the hell am I doing?" So it's all about passion and love, and if you have that, you're going to have the drive to continue it, and everything else you can learn.
Mhm. Editing wise, I couldn't agree more. But again, you guys, Lucas, we cannot thank you enough for being on the show. Again, you guys, go and follow Lucas. I'll leave a link to his Instagram. I'll leave a link to everything. I mean, do you have also stuff on Facebook as well that I'll leave a
Yep.
link to? Yep. And then, he has his Spotify stuff that I'll leave a link to. Go and check out his music. I mean, I highly, highly recommend it. Go check out his sister's podcast that I did. I'll leave a link to that down below as well. I mean, Lucas, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. I mean, it was great to talk to you about, music. And honestly, we wish you nothing but the best. And I'll leave a link down below to all of your songs, like I was saying before, and I'll give that a listen too. And I'll actually, I'll let what I think about. I'm a sucker for some heavy metal or some of that type of EDM stuff. So I'll let you know how good I think it is, and honestly, I think it's gonna be great. But again, you guys go and give him a follow. I'll leave a link to all of his stuff down below. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.